Hi there, y'all. Jyn Yates coming to you live from Kentucky as a professional drummer. Yay! So we've been making these little pieces on drums and music and things like that for a documentary. And I have so many stories to tell. Last night I stayed up very late writing. I'm working on my own autobiography to release eventually, and I wrote a couple chapters last night, and it's going to be funny, and it's going to be heartbreaking, and it's going to be a ride through every emotion all up and down that I have faced in my life and my career. And I really wanted to tell the story, and Beverly McClellan is getting an entire chapter in the book because she was so important to me as a friend. And we just had that spiritual, magical spark that I always look for. I'm always looking for new projects to be a part of and new artists to work with, because I do feel like it's all about the collaboration in music. As an artistic and creative artist, there's so many facets in music. And my views on music have changed over the years. And when I first started, I was just doing it for fun. And, I would study jazz pieces and stuff and marching band and concert bands. And I was always playing in a garage band. My dad was playing too, so I was seeing him when I was young play with all these other people. And I remember bits and pieces of that. But like I said, my thoughts on music have changed over the years. And then, of course, I pursued it full time at age 30. Just by way of the universe and a higher power. And I've kept doing it all these years. And I look back at music now, and it's really interesting. There's so many different facets, like I say. I always wanted to be a creative artist. I just wasn't for sure how to use my voice. And along the way, I met these amazing vocalists that I got to work with. Renee Jansky being one of them down in Arkansas, who's an amazing vocalist and studied, at colleges and stuff for, I believe, opera. And she said to me, "You've got a great voice. You got to learn how to use it." And then along the way, of course, Beverly McClellan came into the forefront, and she blew my mind. I mean, I have worked with some amazing vocalists over the years. She was one of those that we just had that creative, magical spark that I always look for. And we would try to write together, and it would just be magic, and we'd have so much fun doing it. And then we just decided to just keep writing music because we loved it. And I've always sought out projects, as an artist to keep doing it. So the original music scene was really always my favorite part, because it's how I could express myself through music, instead of just playing the notes, all the theater projects I took, I did that, my therapist said to me, you have a hard time staying present. And I thought, well, what else could make you stay present more than taking a musical and having to read, 100 pages a night? And if you lose focus, you're lost. Or if your attention span goes somewhere else, you're lost. So I did that per my therapist, and now we're several musicals in, and I've loved doing all the theater I've done. And then of course there's the cover band stuff. You're playing music that other people wrote, which always brings me joy. I always love playing cover music and getting to choose, different cover songs and stuff like that, and seeing if I can master them. And over the years, I've had multiple cover bands that did all kinds of styles of music. And it's funny to watch the music throughout my life and how it was angry in the 20s, and then it got a little lighter in the 30s, and then it just kind of went from there. And I'm always seeking out new projects with artists who I find amazing to create with. But yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about Beverly McClellan, because a lot of people don't know how we met, and they always ask me, "How'd you meet?" And it is a really magical story. It involves Miss Julie Wolfe, and I give her all the credit in the world because I love that woman, and she's one of the most talented female musicians and vocalists that I've ever, met, and one of the most beautiful spirits I've ever met as well. But I had gone on an audition for a play at Actors Theater in Louisville called Girlfriend, and it was based off of Matthew Sweet's record in the 1990s called Girlfriend, which dropped about a week before Smells Like Teen Spirit, which wiped it off the map. Beautiful record, though. If you haven't heard that record, I highly recommend that you go get a copy of it and jam it out from top to bottom, because it's great. And because of Julie Wolfe and that experience, I ended up getting hired at Michigan Women's Music Festival to be the house drummer for a few of their shows that they had through the week. And so that meant that I got to work with all these incredible artists that were flying in to perform. And we were playing the Saturday night with a group called Chicks Licks. And the all-female band on stage got to rehearse with all these artists and basically play with them on a Saturday night. Bev came in the day of the show, and she was set to rehearse with us that morning. And of course, I'd never met her. The night before, I'd played with a female hip hop artist named Medusa, who is amazing. I recommend you totally get her stuff as well. And thank goodness Julie Wolfe put me on that, because of my love of electronic drums. And obviously in hip hop, they have a lot of electronic drums and sounds and sampling and sound effects and stuff like that. They love those 808s, you know what I mean? So, I was hired in to do that. I was on stage rehearsing, and the bass player, Allison, was from the band Betty. It was an all-star band. I mean, amazing group of people. And Bev shows up, and she's performing Stop Dragging My Heart Around by Tom Petty and Stevie Nicks. And it's a duet show. So there's two of them on this show, right? And something happened in rehearsal. We were on the main stage, but nobody was there yet. And we were talking about, or something happened with an ending or something like that. And Bev kind of got scolded by the band and or one of the band leaders, and said, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but she got scolded a little bit, which was kind of awkward. And they were like, we're not going to end the song that way, Beverly. We're going to end it the way that the band plans it out, and da-da-da-da. So Bev turns to me, looks right at me, and says, is she always weird like that? And so I was like, I don't know this girl, and the band person she was into it with had hired me, so I wasn't going to say a word, and it was awkward, and I was like, I didn't know how to respond to that. So she was like, okay, we'll do it your way, and so they finish rehearsal, and then she leaves, and she sits on the side of the stage to watch the rest of the rehearsals that I had to be in. And we're working with all these artists, and it seemed like it goes on for another 30 minutes or so, or maybe longer, and then when we're done, I come off the stage, and she runs up to me, and she was like, dude, where are you from, man? She was like, asking me all these questions about girls and about the band and, how did I get there? And I said, I'm from Kentucky. And she was like, oh, wow, I'm a country girl too. I was born, in Gate City, Virginia, and also on the border to Kingsport, Tennessee, in a small town. And, and she said I was on The Voice and all this stuff. Well, I didn't watch TV, so I didn't know. So she was like, do you want to go to the woods with me and hang out? So we did. And I was on break for a long time. So we go to the woods and we hang out, and of course, where we are is where everybody's showering and all this crazy stuff. And we talked for a long time, and we just had that magical spark, man. And she said, man, how long you been drumming? Was asking me all these questions. We took a bunch of selfies. Skip to later that night. We part ways. I go eat and do all this stuff I've got to do to get ready. And she comes up to me, and she's like, man, she's all excited about the gig. And I was all nervous because I'm having to play all this incredibly hard music. With all these other females, and I had to really concentrate because it was a big gig for me, and, to be a Kentucky girl from a small town and get a gig like that was big to do, and I forget how many thousands of women were there to watch this event, but, we had a whole backup, we had the dancers, we had the catwalk, we had the whole backup choir and backup vocalist and 2 or 3 drummers, and it was just amazing. It was an amazing experience. Huge band. Big stage, awesome lighting. The lighting tower out in the field, like they did at Woodstock and such. And And so we talked for a little bit, and then up comes her song, right? And she gets on stage, and if you know anything about Bev, she loves to be a showstopper, and she was a showstopper. She was that magical, over-the-top energy that was bigger than life personality, and sometimes people didn't know how to take her, but I did because I was the exact same way. So we were magical soul sisters from the beginning. Comes up to her song, and it gets to the ending. And she turns to me like, I'm about to end it. Wow, big ending, right? And I went with her. I was like, what else can you do? I just went with her. And after that, she dropped her mic and walked over to that lady. And she said, I'm stealing your drummer. I'm stealing your drummer. And she looked at me and was like, you're my drummer. And that was the end of that. And from that moment on, we were magical soul sisters. And then skip to, we talked, and I was playing a show in Ohio at the Women's Music Festival there on my birthday, September 18th. And she said, I'm headlining that. And she goes, and you're going to drum with me. So you meet me there. And I did. And the rest is her story, as we call it. And we went on to record music for the last 6 years of her life. Up until last year, she passed away of cancer on October 30th. Of 2018. And we are just now going to do a celebration of her dedication to women's music here in Louisville, Kentucky at an event called She Castle that I am producing with a beautiful friend, Elaine Hartwick. And I would love for everybody to come if you're around the area. They're also hoping to get other festivals going in her honor across the United States. And if you don't know who she is, I'd love for you to Google her. We had a musical project called Hillbilly Swagger. And she was mostly a blues soul artist and had toured the world, even toured with B.B. King at some point, was nominated for a Grammy with Steve Vai, had done all these amazing things. And I will never forget her, and I feel like I still am left with a lot of her music, and, eventually we're going to share that with you all. But I just wanted to tell the story about how we met because so many people ask me. It's really thanks to Julie Wolfe and Allison from Betty and all those, and all the people who were at that Mish Fest that year. It was one of the last ones they ever had. So it was a magical moment, and definitely she gets an entire chapter in the autobiography because she really believed in me. She believed in me not only as an artist, a creative artist, putting out solo work, and she encouraged me to keep putting out solo work and to keep writing no matter what I had to say. I was way outside of her box because she was used to doing the blues scene, and I was like, Bev, you could do every style of music. You can rap on, she could do the Indian chanting, the Middle Eastern stuff. She loved, anything to do with the vocal. She played piano beautifully well, as you can see in the clips. Guitar amazingly too. And she never, ever, ever had a set list for me. She would always say, well, whatever happens, happens. Because she did believe in living in the magic of the moment. And she truly believed in that. And she truly believed in me as a producer. At the time I was working on a record, an electronic record called Femtronica, Welcome to the Queendom. And it was my first electronic record because I loved electronic music. And I had done rock and roll records and blues records and, country records and punk records and all these like rockabilly and all these different styles, but I had never really tackled electronic, which I loved, which some people hate, but I actually love. And I was doing all this hip-hop-y rap stuff in between, playing drums and doing it in a local cover band that I was in. And it seemed to go over really well. People responded to it. Especially my generation and younger. And so she was like, that stuff you do, I want you to do that on a record with me. And so that's why we named it Hillbilly Swagger, is because it was so outside of her normal box that she didn't want to scare off any of her former fans. And so we went with that project name to kind of hide under a moniker and do and write what we wanted to write. And I believe we got like 22 tracks, if not more, out of that. And I'm still finding stuff today that we did because I just wanted to keep a mic on her at all times. And she was like, Jyn, you can produce these songs just as quick as I can write a song. And I said, you're right. And sometimes she would throw 2 or 3 at me a day. And I'd be like, guess what? Boom, 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 boom. I can produce most all of this. And of course, some we would leave behind and then come back later. And then, of course, she got sick and went to Florida. And I was in Kentucky. And we're back and forth a lot of times. And trying to finish everything. And we never did really get it finished, so a lot of these tracks you're hearing from Hillbilly Swagger are not complete by any means. But I have material from her to last a lifetime, and I plan on using it and keeping her voice out there, because she was a magical artist and a beautiful spirit and beautiful person who I will never forget about. And as long as I'm here on earth creating music, she will be around, you know, in my soul. In fact, I wanted to show you this in my drum room. I've got a couple dedications to her, but that was her logo that we put on her life celebration pamphlet. And I'm going to try to get a drum head made of that. This was the cover of one of her records called Fear Nothing, because she had a Fear Nothing tattoo across her chest. And of course she was bald, and there's lots of stories about that and why she did that. But it also was her signature trademark almost. So anyway, we're here to remember Miss Beverly McClellan. And I hope you enjoyed that story. There's lots more to come, and there's lots more music to come. And we got a documentary coming out, and we got a book getting ready to drop, and we got a solo record coming. I'm producing multiple groups with multiple different styles, from hip-hop to spiritual folk records to, you know, everything in between with my Kentucky Beatniks project. The Mad Women Chicks have a bunch of original stuff coming out that I'm laying raps on. So stay tuned. We've got some fun stuff coming, y'all. I hope you have a great day. I'm Jyn Yates signing off from Kentucky.